Hi, I'm Kevin Poodle Decamp.
And I'm Trevor, 99% angel, 1% devil Dow.
And this is VTV, the definitive podcast for all things LGBTQ focused,
where we explore the intersection of queer travel, pop culture, and the progressive perspectives of our community.
Hi, Trevor.
Oh, hi, Kev. Fancy seeing you here.
It's so fancy. You look fancy.
You look fancy. I don't know if I've ever seen you in such a tight polo.
It's, fitting.
Literally and figuratively, I guess. What's been going on, huh? What you been up to?
I actually just got back from a trip.
What? A VACAYA trip, or what kind of trip?
It was a personal, fun trip with someone I actually met on a VACAYA cruise.
No way. What VACAYA trip did you meet them on?
It was a Norwegian cruise.
Oh, gosh.
Norwegian fjords.
Yeah, that Norwegian fjords cruise. Incredible.
It was incredible. It was magical. And one thing that helped make it even more magical was meeting this person.
Nice.
And I feel lucky that I got to extend the vacation in a way. Mm-hmm. And we decided last week we coordinated meeting in Rehoboth, which is this cute little gay beach town.
Okay, so tell me about Rehoboth.
Rehoboth has a P-town vibe to it. And it has its own gay beach called Poodle Beach. And it has like a couple of gay clubs and bars and restaurants. So me and him got to explore this together, and it was reminiscence of how we met. And it was kind of a very special time.
I also just got back from a gay travel experience.
Where was that?
I went to one of the Channel Islands, Santa Rosa, and it was sweet. It was kind of my group of friends. There was 24 of us, and we had rented out all of the campsites on this island, and so it was just our community getting to hike and swim and explore. It was very sweet. It was kind of like what I get out of a VACAYA trip, but with like the people that I have in my inner circle. In my immediate circle. So it was very, very sweet. It's funny, I feel like throughout the summer we've gotten to travel so much, especially with the summer tour, and we ain't letting up.
We don't want it to stop.
No. Where do you want to go to next?
Next, I want to go to Ivan's interview.
Ivan is an incredible travel writer and journalist. Ivan's been with VACAYA from the jump. Ivan was on the inaugural cruise, our P-Town cruise, back in 2019, and has continued to get to travel with VACAYA throughout the years. So when we were in New York on our summer tour, Ivan was one of those quintessential people that I really wanted us to get the chance to kind of talk to and spend time with, because Ivan is so well-rounded when it comes to not just travel, but LGBTQ plus travel. Like it to me feels very different. Going on a trip with your family versus going on a trip with your chosen family is just two very separate things.
Yes, and he has a lot of experience, and he's a great writer. He's written for Edge Media as well as Out Magazine and many other publications. So we're lucky to have him. It's so close to VACAYA's orbit.
So let's jump into the interview, shall we?
Here we go.
We have a very, very special, very dear friend of VACAYA, Ivan Quintanilla.
Yes, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we're in New York during New York Pride Month. We're here during Pride Weekend. And you live here in New York. You were just telling us that you've been here for almost 20...
I've been in New York City for 25 years.
25 years.
Which is so weird because I'm like 27. So,
right. Yeah, you were just saying like...
Yeah. So I was a Gerber model, and then it brought me to New York, and then I just kind of stayed.
In the travel landscape, do you feel like you have to kind of change a bit when you're doing travel like outside of an all LGBT experience versus when you're traveling solo, or even when the two of you are traveling together?
Yes. I mean, I think in general, like everybody in our community, you know, there's an awareness and there's a safety factor that you have to take into account.
Yeah.
I would be concerned about that in many places of the US. Like if I travel to like the deep South, I would be very aware of like this, you know, code switching or like, you know, not touching my partner in certain ways, because I would be concerned about that. And definitely when you're going to different cultures and different places, one thing that I want to make sure that I do is just be respectful of the culture as well. So though I am an out and proud gay man, I think it's important when you travel to, and you're in somebody else's space, you're in their home.
Sure.
So what that means to different people is different things.
Sure.
To me, it moderates my behavior in a way that I try to still be me, but being respectful within their world.
Yeah.
And also as a tourist, we have extreme privilege. Like there's so much that we can get away with that people in places that are not as LGBTQ friendly or whose laws are not as LGBTQ friendly cannot do that. And for the most part, people will leave us alone and they'll treat us kindly because we're tourists and they know all that. And so I think there's also an aspect of like a responsibility to the LGBTQ community there that you don't, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to like walk into a space and somehow like out locals in a way that then I get to leave and they have to stay there. So
and deal with the potential repercussions.
So I think it's important to just like be yourself, but be aware of your surroundings and just be a little kinder than you think you need to be. Just be a little more aware than you think you need to be, and just take other people's situation in a little bit more, because if you are in that kind of place, like it really isn't all about you, where other vacations can be all about you, and those are wonderful, you know, as well. So
but that goes into planning what kind of experience and trip you want.
Exactly.
If you want that, then that's the kind of experience you should be going for, versus if you're traveling with the intention of experiencing
another culture,
that culture, you know.
And that's
a good differentiation to make.
Absolutely. And this whole idea of like, should gay people to go to non-gay friendly places? Like that is a conversation that is worth having and that has happened and will continue to happen. To me, it's a very individual thing. Like if you don't want to do it, then you shouldn't do it. If you don't want your money to go to that specific place for whatever reason, or you don't feel comfortable moderating your behavior, then maybe it's not for you. But, you know, there's a whole big world out there and we do exist everywhere. And so there are LGBTQ people everywhere, even in places where they're not
pretending
acknowledged.
Like
There's also some benefit to like, you know, going to these places. But in those scenarios, like, I feel like you have to show up correct, you know? Like, I feel like I want to help that community accept me more, and I don't think in a foreign culture I do that by like assaulting them with my personality. That's a very personal thing for me, and other people may feel very differently. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's almost like you showing up as in like, I want to help, I want to be supportive of this culture that I'm visiting, and as someone who's just like a guest, I would imagine.
And I see it that way. Like I'm a guest in their home, you know?
I was going to piggyback off of the discussion of that you were saying about different experiences and what you're having. We know Ivan through VACAYA. And so what has been kind of a differentiation between when you do travel by yourself or when you're with your partner or with other companies versus what the VACAYA all LGBTQ plus community travel experience has been like?
Just one of the most wonderful things about traveling with VACAYA is that you don't have to moderate your behavior when you're in that group, because you are with like-minded people, and you all do like full ship charters. You know, you do a full buyout of the resort. So everyone that you are around is on your team and is there to make sure that you have the best time ever. And that is one of the things that I find so valuable, because you don't have to be thinking like, am I acting funny? Am I touching my boyfriend in a wrong way? Like even in places that are LGBTQ friendly, like, you know, you can go to any resort in the US and potentially, if you're like kissing your boyfriend at the pool the way any other couple would, you're going to get funny looks. And that's one of the reasons why I love LGBTQ vacations and being on LGBTQ trips, because it's so nice to not worry about that. And it just frees you up to be yourself and enjoy yourself in a way that you can't fully do when you're kind of moderating your behavior.
And also, for those that are like single, worry about doing the dance of like Are they?
Are you not?
Are you not? Like
199%. And this is something that I encounter sometimes. Sorry, I got very
Yeah,
excited.
no,
No, because this has
true.
come up. As a travel writer, you know, I travel to other places, and many times when I speak to other tourism, tourism boards or the PR people that represent these specific destinations, many times there's an argument that is made that like, no, like there may not be gay bars, but like we're all friendly, like people are welcome everywhere, and that's amazing. And in like a utopian society, I think that's a wonderful thing.
That should be the overarching goal, that everyone is welcomed everywhere.
That's wonderful. Yes. But as a gay man, sometimes you want to be able to know that, like, you know, respectfully, you can like flirt with somebody, and you're not going to be, you know, harassed or assaulted or insulted or anything for that. And being on like a VACAYA vacation, for example, just takes all that worry out, and you can just like actually meet people without that concern. And I think that's so valuable.
I mean, even the concept of like our spotlight party, or like,
where it's the
red light, green light, yellow light
introduction. Like, so those that don't know, on the first kind of big dance we have is a stoplight party where you wear red if you are happily taken or just not looking for anything. Yellow is you're curious, but you know, ease into the conversation or ease into any sort of like play or action. And then green is
you're open to anything. So that concept is very much about what you were articulating. I'm going to present myself as open as I wish to in the beginning of this trip, and that kind of sets the bar for what you're looking for and what you could find. And even in the space of like, I can be flirtatious with this whole group, or you can be more definitive about like what it is you're looking for.
And also with the lanyards, you all on VACAYA, you do lanyards where they what you
kind of let you know what you're
you do like red, yellow, green, right? Are those same kind of thing? Like you can be like, I'm a crazy whore, and you wear green, or like, I don't want anything to do with anybody sexually.
Kevin's wearing
and you wear
green
red.
Today, so
but those are like those are like
muted.
dingy green.
They've been washed and used a few times. A little dingy.
She's a dingy queen.
Dingy, yeah, she's a dingy queen.
No, I like. You're not wrong. Yeah.
So those of you that don't know, Ivan is an incredible travel writer, and has traveled literally all over the world.
I mean, not every single place, but you know, I try to.
You've left your mark in a lot of spots.
I've left many marks in many spots. Sorry, Matthew. Matthew's my boyfriend.
He's aware, I'm sure.
So I was in the islands of Tahiti, French Polynesia, just like a few weeks ago.
Wow.
Which, you know, it's such a kind of a bucket list item for so many people. And I just felt so fortunate to be able to go there and visit and experience that. And it is as beautiful as you think it is. Like, it really is. The water is so crystal clear. The last 2 nights I did get to stay in like one of those overwater bungalows, which apparently was thought of in Tahiti. That was the original ones.
Oh, nice.
It was just such a joy to be there and be able to learn a little bit more about the islands of Tahiti, which are 118 islands.
Holy cow.
Many with their own culture and, you know, diverse in their own ways, but all part of French Polynesia. And it's interesting how like the culture there has kind of continues to honor their own history. It's a place where gender fluidity kind of existed before Western culture got there and kind of screwed it up. And so it's interesting how some people are kind of trying to get back to where they were before we screwed it up.
Do you think there's like a way of like defining things between like our Western language of how we talk about maybe intersex or like transgender, or like between how the native Tahiti people kind of like experience that? Like, I feel like maybe there's a bridge there.
It's completely different, and that was something that I kind of realized on this trip. And I think for us, of course, you know, gender expression and sexual attraction are separate, but I think in Western culture we very much clump those together in some ways. And one thing that I found there, you know, and I'm I can only speak to my experience, the 1 week there and the people I spoke to, is that those two are much more separated there than, so one's kind of gender expression and transness or non-binary-ness, for lack of a better term, fluidity, is, I found it to be a lot less connected to sexuality there than I think is here in general.
Oh, that's a good point. Good distinction.
Because we sexualize
everything.
We sexualize everything so much more here. So it makes sense that, and not in a great way, but it makes sense that it is innately just clumped together.
Well, and also historically, and here in the U.S. and North America, and most indigenous communities have had some version of like a two-spirit or a third gender, or whatever you want to call it and whatever they call it. So that was something that's really was very much a part of Polynesian culture, and it continues to be part of the culture, but at the same time, the islands have become very religious, very westernized religion. Yeah. So there's a little bit of struggle between that. Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah,
Western religion coming in and
can you believe it?
Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine?
VACAYA did a French Polynesia cruise. Kevin was on that. Did you get to experience a lot of?
I got to experience, yes, there was exactly what you were talking about, and it was so special because it was just like a non thing. It was just like people just exist and express themselves in these fluid ways, and it was accepted and beautiful, and it was like,
it's the way it should be,
or it felt like something to strive for, at least.
Yeah. We definitely complicate things a little bit here.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever thought about it this way, but in like our gay culture specifically, the way things have moved to like apps and all that stuff, where people are so specific about like, I'm into this, I'm not into this, I'm not into this. Having just like 3 options, red, yellow, and green, gives you an idea of how to encounter that person and how to interact with that person without it being 100% limiting.
Yeah.
Because they're not saying, well, you can interpret whatever that means. And red, yellow, and green mean different things to different people.
Yes.
So in some ways, like, it invites conversation, and it invites like getting to know what that means to the individual, which only helps fuel the experience of the trip, I think.
Yes. And in a world where, in a world that has existed and it should always have been an important thing, consent is so important.
Yes.
Like, here's a way to identify how to approach a person or a situation with making sure that kind of a certain already known level of consent is being recognized and respected. And I actually think that now that we're kind of talking about it, it's interesting that there are just more social settings and spaces that kind of adopt not maybe that way of doing things, but some sort of thing that, like, if you were to go to a bar and just have a way to identify who's in a similar boat.
Yeah, I guess for straight people it used to be like a
wedding ring.
Right.
Yeah.
And for gay people,
I have a cock ring on. Yeah. I'm married. I'm married.
This episode is sponsored by the concept of bears. How long have you identified as a bear?
I think I was about an hour old.
Are you into big, hairy, huggable men? Welcome to the world of gay bears, where the beards are thick, the cuddles are strong, and the appetites huge. Whether you're a bear, cub, or just an admirer, they are fur-tastic fun. No shaving required.
What's your favorite kind of cheesecake?
Any cheesecake, really. I don't think there's a bad one.
What's your favorite kind of cheesecake?
Oh my God, turtle cheesecake.
Okay, and if you had to hibernate for the winter, what food would you bring with you?
Wow, macaroni and cheese. And
oh my God, me too. I love macaroni and cheese.
Bears are everything to me, and that's why every time I put honey in my tea, I think of that man, a bear.
In general, I love that, like, on VACAYA vacations, people get to dress up in these ways. And, gays love outfits. And I'm not so much of like
A
a dress up, a costume queen. Believe it or not, I am more.
That's surprising.
I'm like a lazy costume queen. I want someone to like give me an outfit and be like, this would look amazing on you. And then I try it on and it looks amazing on me.
I feel like you're kind of like...
And then I'm like, yeah, then I'm a costume queen. But the work that goes into, like, I'm not going to be beating my... my you know,
you want to be a little
negligee.
Well, I can relate to that in that I want to be a little practical. So like I love the idea of like, listen, I know I need to be carrying these items. I need to have a way to do that, as well as like if these are gonna come off, if I have like a pants that have like my look underneath it, I want to know where I'm gonna put these pants.
Right.
Anyways, maybe that's my neurospiciness coming out, but it's
well, you have Trevor for that. You can give Trevor your pen. Hey, Trevor, can you hold on to these? I'm so sorry.
I feel like it's the other way around.
Is it the other way around?
Yeah.
Well, you're
But
always
I
like
love-
naked, like running around in almost no clothes and like
said that?
lacy panties.
He is.
Said that.
Yeah, he
Yes.
is, yeah.
Well, I do love a side bag because that you can put stuff in it, but I do love a costume. And I feel
Yes.
like most of the time I feel like Kevin, I'll be like, what do you think of this idea? And then I'll worry about the execution, and then you're pretty good at playing along. And usually we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
But I love a costume.
You do. Yeah. You're one of those.
I know.
But what I do love about the VACAYA vacations that I've been on is that it's like it's a range.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
some of these queens go all out.
Yes.
I mean, like
All
all
6
out.
suitcases,
Like-
and one suitcase just has one
yes,
costume in
like
it.
the way Mariah Carey goes on a weekend trip, like that's what these queens bring on the boat.
Yes.
Like it's like trunks. And then there are people who like are not into it at all, which
Yes.
is great, fine.
Yes.
And then there's like people like me who are somewhere in the middle, where like before the cruise, I'll, you know, a few weeks before, I'll look at all the themes and then I'll buy like a t-shirt that fits every theme or like a little like, you know, a little mini outfit. And that's kind of how I do it.
But that's where it's like there's space kind of for
Yes.
everyone. And also I feel like for the most part, I always say, and this is great advice, Randall gave it to me, you choose 3 dances or 3 events where you're like, okay, this is where I'm gonna like really enjoy my costume. And then the other ones you can kind of like coast and ease through it.
Right.
And so it takes off the pressure of being like, okay, there's potentially 7 or 8
Yeah.
dances or something that I need costumes for. But what I found is the people that don't necessarily dress up enjoy watching the parade
Absolutely.
of chaos and costumes and extravagance.
Because it's an immersive experience. Because
Yeah.
if you haven't seen, we have the themes decorated on wherever the party is. So it's like between that and people showing up in the looks, it's like you are in a world of our own creation.
Yeah. Also, one thing that's great about being like on a cruise ship is that you can, like, if you want to do it up, you can do it up and you can wear your angel wings and you can do whatever you want. And then if like an hour into the party, you're like, my back hurts in these angel wings, you just walk 5 minutes into your stateroom, drop that shit off and drop that stuff off. And, you know, put on a Speedo and walk right out with
That's such a
nothing
good
else.
point, and I've never
people
really
will
thought
love
about
it
it like
just
that.
as
Love
much.
it.
Yeah.
Like you can't go wrong. Much like a headliner on this last VACAYA cruise might have sung, you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, Vanessa, don't sue us for using that.
We love you. Well, also like it's not even something you have to pull on as far as like a relationship that you are meeting with somebody. Like you can just run into people, especially these smaller ship Lux cruises. You'll experience things with them ambiently.
Yes.
Like you'll be in the dining room, you'll be at a show, so you'll see them be like, oh, what'd you think of that excursion?
Yes.
And like, I saw you doing that, how was that? So it's like, it's not even like forcing. It is the most genuine way, I feel like, to establish a relationship, in my opinion, because it's just like you see other people living their best lives, and then you comment on it, and like, what's easier than that?
And you want to partake in it.
Yeah, and
It motivates you.
and a trip like that, like it brings people from such diverse worlds, you know, from everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, you know, gay men, lesbians, bisexual people, trans people, every aspect of our community is represented on a VACAYA cruise, for example. And so though we all come from different worlds, somehow being on the cruise together and going on these excursions together, and then being at the same dance parties together, and then being at the pool together, it gives us a shared language that we can all share and talk about our experiences, even though we come in with very diverse experiences. Like, we're all sharing this really unique thing together. You know?
Have you noticed, kind of touching on the diversity aspect of what VACAYA kind of, you know, the overarching goal is to truly be the most inclusive space for people of the LGBTQ plus community to travel with. You were on the inaugural cruise in 2019 and you've traveled with VACAYA since then. Have you noticed a trajectory in that kind of atmosphere and any changes or any specific events or moments that stuck out to you that feel very inclusive or feel welcoming to more than just, you know, the typical gay male dominated space?
Yeah, so many and so much. And I remember when the inaugural cruise happened that, you know, leading up to it, VACAYA's mission was always to kind of incorporate, be a space that every person in the community and our allies can vacation together. And it's been actually pretty cool to kind of witness that over the years, because like, if you build it, they will come. And was that fully there realized at the very, very first inaugural cruise? No. But the mission was there, and I've been involved and been on enough trips of VACAYA, and I've seen how it's not only like the mission on paper, they have backed it up in such a way, and they create spaces for anyone and everyone to be in. Like, they create spaces that are specifically for women. They create spaces for trans and non-binary guests. And by allowing those spaces to exist, like, people will fill them. And it is a process.
Yeah, it just takes time.
It takes time. And also, you know, different people have different ideas of what their vacations are. But I feel like VACAYA does a really good job at not only creating these spaces when you're on the trip, but they really put their effort and money, for lack of a better term, behind trying to make that happen. Like, that doesn't just happen. You don't just say, oh, we want everyone here, and then everyone shows up. Like, the kind of outreach that they do is really inspiring. I think it's really different and new compared to other LGBTQ travel companies that can say we're very inclusive, but and I don't want to speak for any other company, but like, VACAYA really does go out of their way to create these spaces and bring these people on. And it's less like, you're welcome to be here. It's more like, we're bringing you along.
And how do we make it the best experience possible for everybody, not just the majority?
Yeah.
I hope it's clear. Like, we want to know if something can be improved, we want to do that.
Yeah.
So I hope that comes off too, with like, tell us how to make it better for you.
And I think it does, you know, and I'm a gay cis man. So like, I've always, you know, it's very easy for me to feel included in others, in most LGBTQ spaces. But I've spoken to a lot of people who identify in different ways on the multiple VACAYA trips that I've been on, and they all just like gush about how they feel included. And it's, you know, unprompted by me. I'm just having these conversations, and they feel so welcome, and they're so happy to be there, and there's, I don't know, it's just a welcoming atmosphere that I think everybody can step into it together. And sometimes on that ship, like, even people who you may or may not hang out with outside of the ship, like, it's almost like this little world is created where, like,
it's a little utopia.
Yeah. And I will say, like, the kindest people you will ever meet are on a VACAYA trip.
From all over too.
Yeah. Even people who are probably bitchy in real life, like somehow they tap into the best of what they have.
We can turn it down a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, because the atmosphere doesn't really lend itself to that, you know?
That's a good point.
So it wouldn't work. Like you act a little bitchy and people would be like,
This is not the space for that.
or they just may be like, okay, oh my gosh, bye, you know, or something. So it doesn't feed into it.
Yeah.
Out of all the things that I love about a VACAYA vacation, the kind of kindness and openness of the guests that VACAYA has been able to somehow curate. I don't know how that works. It's like this weird magic formula that they've somehow figured out how to do. Has worked, and it is pretty magical.
Well, I think, you know, just a shout out to Mama Johanna. She does a great job of making sure that the team that is brought onto these trips is as inclusive and as diverse as we want the whole vacation to feel like. It starts with you know, and that's where I think, like, sometimes you hear about like rainbow washing for certain companies and whatnot, but it's like at the root of it, if the goal is to be an inclusive space, then it has to be represented through in the company so that your guests then feel included and welcomed. And then that hopefully trickles down to the guest mindset, because it's also a lot of like, I would imagine if I was 60 years old and I have been through the experiences I've been through, having special segregated spaces to feel safe is important.
Yeah.
So having to kind of unlearn that to welcome our lesbian or our trans or our non-binary guests is a little bit of an adjustment. And through the course of like the 5-6 years that, you know, VACAYA has been around, and the guests that we've had return over and over again, like seeing even just the acknowledgement of pronouns and like having our pronoun pins and all of that is like, it's so like a, well, yeah, of course mindset, instead of it being like a, well, what does this mean?
Yeah.
You know, and that takes time. If you're from somewhere that's like in the middle of the country, that this is not your normal everyday thing, even though you're still a part of the community, like it just takes time. And it's fortunate that I feel like we really have a wonderful group of guests who like want to keep evolving and want to keep learning and want to
help.
It's nice to be on trips and vacations and like interact with people that I don't normally would interact with, being a gay man in Hell's Kitchen, New York, you know, because our worlds do tend to be so insulated.
No, that's a great point. You were mentioning vacations. It got me thinking, is there a spot or any locations where you have yet to travel to that you really have on your bucket destinations kind of list?
Yes, and so many.
And
so many.
Yeah, never ending list.
I mean, there's places that I've not been to that I really want to. Colombia is at the top of the list.
Okay.
Antarctica is at the top of the list.
Yeah.
So Antarctica, like,
let's talk about it.
How amazing to go to Antarctica, this like extravagant expedition place that's like, wow. And to be able to do it with an all LGBTQ charter, like that,
it's insane.
That would blow my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes.
You're already, like, it's already such a remote kind of dream thought. And then to do it with people that have a better understanding of you, and you don't have to like worry about.
Exactly. Like, it would probably be fine. But, you know, being on a non-LGBTQ like excursion out of Antarctica, like if I'm like, oh my god, penguins are gay, like what's like Susie Ann from Wisconsin gonna say to that? Probably nothing, because Susie Ann, I think, is actually a kind person inside. But you know, like,
but also you don't want to have to second guess exclaiming penguins are gay, which is going to be the title of this episode.
Penguins are gay. To be able to be like with seals and otters during the day, and then go back to the ship and be with seals and otters at night.
Okay, so we've got Antarctica. You've talked about Spain a little bit. That's one of your favorite places that feels very safe. Are there any other kind of dream locations that...
So my first like kind of like big crazy trip was to Australia when I was maybe like 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there. And I went for a month. So Australia has always held a really special place in my heart. And I have I literally, as an adult man, cried when the plane took off. Like, I was so sad to leave. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'd fallen in love like 82,000 times already, you know, and people were so friendly. It was like one of the warmest, friendliest group of people that I've ever encountered traveling. And it's now been like, you know, 20 years and I've not been back. So that continues to be on my bucket list to get back to.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're like, take me back. Take me out back.
Oh.
Is
Yes.
that's right?
Did something happen to your bike?
Sure,
What was
sure,
that?
sure.
It's the Australian accent.
There's a Nicole Kidman quality to
Nicole Kidman's
you.
here, yeah.
Yeah, you're a little more
We come to
expressive.
this place for magic. Yeah, well, I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? She looks good.
She looks amazing. Nicole, I love you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you.
Truly. And it's always such a joy to get to experience you. Tell the kids where they can find you.
It's at Traveling IQ, the American spelling, so with one L, TravelingIQ. And my website is travelingiq.com, which I do primarily at this point write for as a freelance writer for a lot of other publications, but I always post my stuff through that as well, so you can keep up with me that way.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool and resource for people who are curious, who are not even just people who are LGBTQ, but anybody that is interested in, even if they're a well-traveled person or they're interested in the idea of traveling, you're a great resource and a great person that's always so accessible and feels welcoming and warm. So not to just put you out there to invite anybody to reach out to you, but
please reach out. I'm welcoming and warm.
You got that?
If you want to learn more about Ivan and the articles he's written for us, you can check out the description below.
And what I love about Ivan is he perfectly encompasses what VACAYA spirit is, and he does a great job of translating that in his writing, and readers really get a sense of what VACAYA is and who Ivan is, and that's such a special skill. Well, cheers. Episode 3 done.
That's it for our episode today. Thank you for tuning in to VTV. You can find us on YouTube for our full episodes or stream our audio on Spotify and Apple Music.
And you can always find clips of today's episode on our social media at MyVACAYA on Instagram and TikTok. And you can always send us messages with questions, topics that you'd like us to discuss. We are open, baby.
We are open and ready for you. Cheers to being open and ready and fiber.